we'll get going. So you are at the Data Center Infrastructure Group Coffee Talk. For those of you that don't know what DCIG is, it's basically a new organization that's all of the hardware inside HPE. So it's basically inside of that organization is where servers sits, high-performance computing, the mission-critical computing servers like Nonstop and Unix-based systems, and I don't know, do we still do True 64? I guess we stopped doing that, didn't we? That was a joke. Storage sits there, and then data center networking. And there's also segments that look at things like SMB, service providers, looking at telco solutions. So it's really kind of like two types of things, that there's a part of the group that's focused on actually just doing the hardware, and then there's the kind of the SMB focus or the enterprise focus or the other markets that we're focused on. And Brad, since you're kind of in that part of the group, if we get questions about that, you can talk more about it. So there's a lot of news from the Data Center Infrastructure Group that we're going to cover. Patrick is going on the cube. So what we'll do is we'll just have you guys kind of start with an overview, have you actually maybe introduce yourselves first, and then we'll just kind of jump into the news, and you can talk about the piece that you're going to talk about before you need to go.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we actually just start introductions and...
Want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Ivan Iannaccone. I'm the Director of Product Management for the Free Power product line. So that's hardware, software, manageability. You know, we had a couple of cool announcements this week. We're going to talk about it a little more during the session. Pat?
Yep, I'm Patrick Osborne, Director of Product Management in Storage, and I know a number of you, so thanks for coming to the show. I hope you're enjoying it. So, do you want to start off with some of the three-part stuff we did? Oh, okay, great, sure.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Brett Gibbs. I'm the Persistent Memory Product Manager. We'll be going into a lot of the technology improvements that we're making and the hardware and software ecosystem work that we've been doing with our partners.
Hi, I'm Don Wilde. I'm the VP and GM of the Data Center Networking business. And obviously the big news we have is the partnership with Arista.
I know part of the news you're going to talk about is kind of a relationship with Veeam and kind of what we've done to extend that relationship. Why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on in your part of the world?
Sure. So we had a number of announcements on the storage side. Ivan's going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing around Flash, some availability around Flash and our use of persistent memory, as well as some new consumption model pricing that we're providing for customers. I'm covering a little bit on the data protection side. So what we're seeing is the traditional backup space is being disrupted in terms of the way people are taking a look at backup. That's being compounded, I think, a lot by the adoption of Flash, right? So we're seeing higher fan out, higher number of volumes, more hypervisors, a much larger application density footprint per effective terabyte on these systems. So your risk in effect is actually going up quite a bit. So what we are providing our customers to help with that is built-in data protection into our all-flash systems. We call it Recovery Manager Central, or RMC, and combining that with our secondary storage that we use for backup called Store Once. It's a deduplicating, data compacting secondary storage platform. We're able to provide application-consistent snaps, replication, and offload to secondary storage that's integrated into the 3PAR UI. It's completely accessible through APIs. And we have a number of things that we've done over the last few months to extend that from a relationship standpoint. We have basically any customer that's doing in-memory computing with SAP HANA that has a data set over 6 terabytes is at a very large risk in terms of data protection, right? So what we're doing is we're providing a platform to use application-consistent snapshots and replication and backup for very large SAP HANA systems. And we have that from a product standpoint. We're also partnering with Accenture. They have the #1 practice for designing and implementing SAP HANA solutions for customers. So we're partnering with them. So there's some pretty cool stuff going on with RMC, and we'll talk a little bit about how that gets folded in from a consumption model pricing, but I don't want to steal Ivan's thunder, but we're actually adding in data protection for around a penny a month per gigabyte from a consumption model standpoint, and that'll be on top of what you're paying for flash, which is extremely competitive in the market. So we're doing that, and then what we're also seeing in the market is our partnership with Veeam is expanding considerably. So as they move their solutions farther up in the market, we're starting to see a larger intersection of customers, right? So thousands of customers use HPE compute, networking, and storage for virtualized environments, and they're protecting that with Veeam. So we announced a resell partnership with Veeam, so we'll be reselling them through our what we call our HPE Complete program. So you can source the entire solution from HPE. We also have a number of product integrations with them as well. So they are fully integrated into our dedupe technology that we call Catalyst, as well as we also are the first purpose-built backup appliance that does inline deduplication to support all of their advanced feature sets around instant VM recovery and sandboxing. So you think about it, we have a secondary storage system that will give you, 10, 15, 20 to 1 deduplication for secondary storage sets. That comes usually at a price in terms of, performance for things like random I/O. But what we've done is we've engineered a solution with Veeam so that you can actually boot up workloads for the purposes of very quick restore off of store once. And you can also do their sandbox features, which allows you to take data sets and sandbox them for test and dev. So you can run those workloads, maybe not at the highest performance that you get for 3-PAR all-flash, but you can run those workloads off of secondary storage. It's the first PBBA dedupe system to do that. So we've done quite a bit of work with them and expanded that relationship. So some exciting things we've done there, as well as for customers that are looking for super high-level scalability in the archiving space. We also have a partnership with Spectra Logic around extremely scalable tape libraries that approach the exabyte level. So a lot of stuff going on for secondary storage. I don't know if you want to. There's
actually, since you got to go, let's see if anybody has any questions first, since we want to give these guys a chance to ask questions about the backup stuff. So,
question.
Where's VM Explorer in this story? Okay, it's HP software now and it's gone, but you're going to do something with VM Explorer?
So we already support VM Explorer. We have integration with VM Explorer in terms of they support all of our primary storage platforms. There's snapshot integration with Store Virtual and 3PAR. They support all of our tape platforms. They support backup to store once. So that's something we already do in market. What's that?
No Catalyst.
No, they don't have Catalyst support. No, but that's a backlog item that they're looking to provide that support at some point. I don't know when it's going to come, but it's certainly a high ask from their customers.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that we announced on 3PAR. The most interesting one is this initiative that we're calling Flash Now, that basically is bringing new consumption models to storage. As Patrick was mentioning, we can extend this also to data protection, to the fabric if needed. And this just enables a different kind of cash flow for customers, because customers like the idea to purchase flash, but the cost of acquisition sometimes scares them because they cannot understand that it yields some ROI, sometimes even in 6 months if you read some of the studies. So we put together two kind of consumption models. One is pay as you grow, and think about it almost like a financial agreement, almost like a lease, right? If you want to put it in simple terms. And we also got a pay-as-you-go. That is more of a service agreement. You pay depending on how much storage you consume. You've got the same kind of properties of the cloud. So you have the elasticity that if you're consuming more storage, you pay more. But if then you're consuming less storage because you've deleted data, you've moved some workloads, you start paying less, right? You're paying on average. So I think this is very interesting, just because if you speak with customers, almost everybody has got something that is called a cloud initiative that is internally. Most customers don't even know what a cloud initiative means, right? They're just asking me, okay, what should I do? And we just want to provide customers a solution where they can get the flexibility of the public cloud, but having all of their storage on-prem, right? So we're not suggesting that, look, there's no use of the public cloud. There's some very good use cases for the public cloud. But I think we just want to offer customers an alternative and a choice where they can have the best of both worlds, right? They can have the best of breed technology. They can also consume it in a very different way. So this is something that actually has resonated a lot with a lot of customers. I think also the opportunity to have both models, right? It can be, a CapEx model or also an OpEx model, because, when you speak with customers, sometimes they have capital budget, but they don't have operational budget, and sometimes it's vice versa. So the fact that we give this kind of flexibility is something that they actually enjoy. And another important thing that we can do is that we can help customers modernize the infrastructure. So we've got a very complete asset and trading program. So we can actually buy some assets back to the customer. We can give them some cash infusion so they can actually start to buy into the program. And we've got something that is like a payment deferral. So for the first 90 days, that's more or less how much it takes you to migrate data. More or less 3 months, you don't pay anything, right? So if you start paying us from a utility model after you actually migrated the data. So I think this is, overall pretty interesting when it comes to the consumption model. It can extend to data protection. That's also very important. Networking, also important. And of course, there's no reason why it can't also include service, right? We've had this kind of consumption models for a long time for service, but we never really bought it in such a comprehensive way also for storage, and that's what we're doing here. The second thing that is also very interesting is a tech preview that we're doing using Intel Optane inside the FreePower. And, we did some experiments a few months back. At the beginning, you always have an academic conversation, right? Okay, we think that if we do this, it's going to work. And actually proven, we did a POC, we've proven to be right. So we were able to accelerate a lot of I/O by just introducing an extra layer of storage class memory. 3D Crosspoint, there's a storage class memory between the DRAM and between all flash and non-flash. And what is interesting is that customers enjoy the economics of flash by buying bigger and bigger drives, but the downside of it, as you know, is that the overall overall I/O per gigabyte just goes down, right? That's just natural. So with this kind of technology, we actually enabling customers to enjoy, the economics of having the bigger drives, but also slowing down the decline that you get from that I/O per gigabyte. And we've got it working here. We wanted to do a tech preview just because we were able to demonstrate, right, NVMe running inside a FreePower storage class memory running on a FreePower. We envision that in the first instantiation, this will be like a caching use case, just because the overall dollar per gig of 3D Crosspoint is, around 4 to 5 times the cost of 3D NAND flash. So I think this is the best way to introduce this technology to existing customers and future customers. But, 2-3 years down the line, we see storage class memory just replacing NAND flash, just because the access time are much better. So, right now the economics are not there, but we envision that in the future, people will just buy NVMe drives with, storage class memory. And this could be 3D Crosspoint, this could be, Memrista, this could be, or just ReRAM from, other vendors, right? There's really not a reason to use one another. Right now, Intel Optane, as you know, is really the only storage class memory that is available on the market.
Yes, I migrating 2 clients into 3PAR, and we've been working on the resolution for the implementation for about 2-3 months right now. And I was asking Calvin during the month that you say that you provide training for the client to migrate information. Can you be a little more specific? Because I thought that you needed to be 3PAR certified to do migration? Because I'm doing this directly with HP. I'm not doing this through a partner.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the data migration that we have today, online import, I guess that's what you're talking about. The online import is customer facing, so there's no certification that is needed. Any customer, can do it. We provide instruction, it's fully supported. So if a customer is trying to do, for example, the data migration has a problem, they can call in and we will support that, right? So of course there's training if you're a partner and so on. It's always good to have that certified stamp, but there's nothing stopping the customer to do the migration itself.
Why if you are a partner on security and not on storage?
I don't know that. I can answer that question. So I need to look into that.
Mike, you have over the 3D crosspoint that you have, is that a disk drive form factor? The 3D?
No, it is PCIe. So it's a PCIe card, just because that's the protocol for NVMe right now, and it's a 2-inch form factor.
Yeah. Okay. And I know it's new stuff, right? And this is the first look. I mean, there's been very little seen of 3D crosspoint so far. So I know it's early, but I'm just curious, what are you guys saying, or can you talk about
absolutely.
that?
I mean, you can just see it there, right? So the theory that we had was that, look, the bottleneck when you look at Flash right now is the amount of time it takes to access the media, reads and writes. It's around 90 microseconds, okay? And the 3D crosspoints provide around 8 microseconds. So, we just said, okay, every time I've got a read miss, that I actually have to go and read the data from NAND flash, go and read the data from SCM, from the storage class memory, from the crosspoint. And we can see that the access times are like 10 times faster. So if you look at the demo, we're going from around 250 microseconds down to 150 microseconds of consistent latency, right? So it's looking promising. I mean, it is. I agree with you. It's new technology, but I think Intel is maybe 6 months out, actually, productizing this in a bigger, in a more mass production, right? So it's looking promising. As I say, if it weren't, we would not do a tech preview and talk about it in the first place. Right? So we're pretty serious with this.
Hey, so I have a question about your supply chain. Every vendor we talk to at the moment are beginning to see flash go into constraint.
Yeah.
So how are you hedging? Are you managing to continue with supply certainly the larger drives, which seem to be getting more and more difficult to get hold of?
Actually, it's quite interesting. It's almost the opposite. The bigger drives are right now easier to get hold of because they're all moved to the latest geometry, right? So, and usually the way fabs work is that they want to move to the latest geometry as fast as possible, just because they have they yield better benefits from producing chips with lower nanometers, right? So there were some challenges in the past quarters. There was a shortage across the entire industry. We've got the luxury of having a lot of leverage as a company, so we've managed fairly well. If you heard our earning results, 50% of 3PAR revenues come from all flash. So despite the challenges, we're able to, survive and thrive in this market. And right now, there are only a few suppliers that I will not mention that we're producing 3D NAND. But in the next quarter and 2 quarters, we're going to have almost all the biggest 4 and 5 suppliers that are going to move to 3D NAND. So, things have gotten much stable. And as I said, it was quite interesting that the bigger drives are actually the easier to source. The small capacity, like the 400 and 800 gig, are a bit more hard, especially because servers also ships them, right? Servers don't really ship the big capacity drives that, usually we sell in storage arrays. But nonetheless, there's been a big shortage, and a lot was, due to a couple of vendors in the industry that were actually going after a lot of NAND. And I think that's going to be interesting in the long term because with memory, there's always been a lot of volatility of the market. That's pretty normal that, the cost and the price of DRAM has changed. That's not something that has affected the storage industry a lot in the past, but I actually foresee that changing. So I think it's something that as storage vendors, we have to get used to it, right? We have to get used to that market being much more volatile than it was before.
Which also means you have to bring your customers on that journey, bring your customers on that journey as well, because unless you're going to hide the cost from your customers.
Yeah, so then that's a decision that we, sometimes we have to make as a vendor, right? We have to understand, okay, can we bear the cost? And also remember that we have to be competitive in the market. And this is a market where everybody sometimes wait for some time to see, okay, what are the other vendors doing? Because if I just start passing the cost to you, I become uncompetitive, right? So I think it really depends. In this case, there was no change, right? Just because we could bear it, because we had the volumes and we have the luxury of having a very big company with a lot of leverage. But maybe that will change in the future. And I can tell you that some other small vendors were really affected by the shortage, right?
3D crosspoint in FreePar, is that going to be a read-only cache only? And is it going to work in a similar way to the adaptive flash cache, where it's essentially an extension of the controller cache and it tears down to that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? And again, remember that all writes, 100% of writes go to DRAM. So the DRAM access time is a nanosecond, right? Microseconds. So doing a write directly to a storage class memory doesn't make that much sense. So this is the main reason why you want to accelerate the read miss. So you want to accelerate, okay, I'm going always in RAM. I can't find the data. I want to go and get it to a media that is just faster. So in theory, you could have it as a write cache, but it doesn't really make that much sense, right? You could almost envision it as having, if you have a buffer overflow and things like that, but we have not seen good use cases where, having it as a write cache actually makes sense. And the algorithm is very similar to what we use for flash cache, right? But technically it's not flash anymore, it's storage class memory, so that's why we're just calling it something different.
And can you say how long we are from seeing this in production approximately?
Well, I would say we're at least 12 months out, right? And the reason is, it takes time to develop a very robust NVMe driver. The NVMe driver that we have is good, but it's still a pretty new technology, right? And this is stuff that people want to put in their data center, they want to turn on, and they expect it to run for 7 or 10 years, right? So this is why it takes some time to just harden the NVMe driver. And then, we're expecting a new version of Octane, and then we will be ready to ship, right? So I think it's a combination of both. So it's 6 to 12 months out.
What kind of results have you seen with different workloads? Are you able to give a percentage figure saying?
It will vary because you will get the best possible benefits when you have read misses, so where you have a lot of random reads, because then the data, it's not in cache. In that case, it's around 50% lower latency and around 60 to 80% more IOPS, right? Depending on the workload. So if you do 100% writes, you won't see any benefits because everything goes to cache. If it's a sequential read, you won't see benefits either. But if it's small blocks, sequential read, you'll see those results, right? And as I said, just go and look at the demo. I think it shows exactly what it's again very interesting.
Thank you.
So let me do this. You don't have anywhere to go, right? You can just hang around.
No, I'm.
So make sure we get to everything. Let's have Brett go next and talk about the persistent memory. Wrong way. And he's going to talk about the persistent memory. We'll take a couple questions there if you guys have them, and then we'll have Dom talk about the data center networking and infrastructure things that we have. And then we'll just open it up to general questions, but let's make sure we get through everything here. So.
Okay, I'll keep it brief, Calvin. So let's start with a little bit of history. This week marks 1 year since we launched the persistent memory category. We came here to Discover in London last year to announce that category. We had demos with our new technology, and we actually launched our first product. So I'm going to pass this around. This is an HPE 8 gig NVDIMM, and if you can pass it that way. This product here, the 8 gig NVDIMM, is 8 gigs of DRAM backed by NAND flash, right? And this is really the first NVDIMM in the industry designed around a server platform. So if I'm you guys, I'm probably asking, well, you're not the first NVDIMM in the market, and that's true, but we're the first one that we designed around a platform. And what that means is we were able to, I like to call it ProLiantization. We designed it around the ProLiant server. It's integrated in with the ILO management. You have to have backup power for these NVDIMMs, right? Because you're running data on volatile memory. And so we actually use the HPE Smart Storage battery. You may be familiar with that battery. That's the same battery that provides the backup power to the smart array controller. And the way that works is, in the event of a power loss, that battery provides backup power to the memory slots and holds up the power so the data can move from that DRAM to that NAND flash chip that you see on the NVDIMM that's going around. So, like I said, we were here last year announcing the category. This is our first product. What's new and what's exciting that we're doing here? One thing I hope you get out of today's session is that it's not only about the hardware. I'm passing around a hardware widget. You just heard about 3PAR. You hear about all this great hardware, but we bring the complete hardware and software ecosystem to bear in the market. And what I mean by software ecosystem, this is the operating system support. So we have a Windows Server 2012 R2 driver that we developed. Hey, I like how you're tucking that in your shirt there. We have an NVDIMM driver that we developed. Windows, we've worked very closely with Microsoft. Microsoft Windows 2016 has an inbox driver for persistent memory support. So we work very closely with them on that. We also have recently announced, you may have seen in the press, both SUSE and Red Hat now have support. Red Hat RHEL 7-3 and SUSE Celeste 12 SP2. We now have NVDIMM driver support in that area. So we work closely with both of those operating system partners on that as well. The other thing we're showcasing is the application support. Natively, if you put an NVDIMM in a system, you do not need the application to change. It's going to talk to that NVDIMM just like it would any other block storage device. But you guys know memory very well, and talking to an NVDIMM, which is basically DRAM backed by flash, talking that to like you would a hard drive or SSD, you're not gaining the full performance potential that you can get out of the device. So we've worked closely with Microsoft, and in SQL 2016, they have changed their transaction log code, more specifically what we call the tail of the log, the portion of the transaction log where the most recent writes are coming in. That now addresses persistent memory in a byte addressable manner. So byte addressable is how applications talk to memory today, so you talk to it more efficiently. And we actually have the demo live on the showroom floor, but the couple of the key takeaways from that, because now that application and the transactions are written to the NVDIMM first, we've got a doubling of performance relative to the very fastest write-intensive NVMe SSD that we sell on ProLiant, and we reduce the latency in half. Something like 63,000 transactions per second on the NVMe and about 128 or so on the NVDIMM. And in that demo, we also showcased the CPU utilization. We capped out at around 64% CPU utilization, and when we added in the NVDIMM and enabled tellable log, we pegged out at 100% CPU utilization, and in effect, we're actually CPU bound in that situation. That just kind of gives you an idea of the value of persistent memory. Here I have an 8 gig NVDIMM, and actually, while I'm talking about this, you can check out a blog that I published yesterday. The title of the blog, and you'll get a kick out of this, are 8 gig NVDIMMs too big. Okay? One of the most common questions I get is 8 gig, not very interesting, go away, I can't use that. With that tellable log demo, I was able to double performance, reduce my latency in half, get 100% CPU utilization, all with a single 8 gig NVDIMM. And the tell of the log, portion of the tell of the log, and you can confirm this with Microsoft, is 20 megabytes, not gigabytes, 20 megabytes. So in effect, that's the reason for the title of my blog. 8 gig, when only 20 megabytes is needed, actually you could make an argument it's too big. Now what I'm not promoting here is that we're only going to be doing 8 gig NVDIMMs and other products aren't coming. We've got some really cool stuff coming in Gen 10, so if you get a chance to go to the technology showcase, we have our distinguished technologists here showcasing multi-terabyte capacity persistent memory running at
memory speeds. And he's got several use cases there as well. We had a session today earlier with both Microsoft and VMware. Yes, I got them both on stage together. They talked about what they're doing to get the market ready for persistent memory. So very cool demos out on the showroom floor. We have a session on Thursday. A couple of our technologists are going to be going over persistent memory, focusing in on SQL enablement as well as Oracle enablement. We have an Oracle white paper out there today that shows you how you can use NVDIMMs today to get an equivalent level of performance using NVDIMM technology with fewer server core pairs relative to using no NVDIMMs in a system. And we're actually showcasing a reduction of up to 50% of the server core pairs. Those of you that have seen the price tags for database licensing understand that it's a very big price tag when you start talking about server core pair licensing. So we've got a really, a lot of good use cases on that. Again, I encourage you to come out to the showroom floor, come by and talk to me and one of my colleagues. Also go to the technology showcase and kind of see what's coming in Gen 10. And I'll go ahead and end there and see if there's any questions.
So the NVDIMM, can I see it as a disk? Or do I need...
So the question is, can the NVDIMM be seen as a disk? So if you load like in Windows Server 2012, it actually is presented as a drive letter. And you can actually have several NVDIMMs. We support up to 16 in a system and make all that kind of as a pool of capacity. So yes, it will show up as a drive letter and be seen as a block storage device in that scenario.
Does it work with VMware also?
VMware is working on the NVDIMM driver. I was at VMworld in August, showcasing the first persistent memory, presenting up from a guest operating system into VMware. We just kind of showcased some raw I/O, but we did both Linux and also, ironically, did the SQL Tell the Log demo up through VMware. So it's a pre-production driver. VMware will be making announcements on the release of that in the coming months.
And the multi-terabyte, it will be terabyte system based on multiple NVDIMMs, probably, right? You're talking about future larger DIMMs with backed by flash.
Yeah, so in a public forum like this, I can't go into details because it is Gen 10 technology, but I will tell you, think of it as a large pool of persistent memory running in that multi-terabyte capacity range and providing performance at memory speeds.
Okay, so it's more or less what we can already have from Diablo and similar vendors, or it's something different?
You can have multi-terabyte capacity from like the Diablo Technologies Memory 1, but keep in mind the Diablo Technology Memory 1, there's a couple of items there. One is that what I'm talking about runs at the speed of memory. Diablo Memory 1 does not. And then, I'm also talking about persistence. I believe the Diablo product, the way I understand it.
They have two products.
Okay, the Memory 1 specifically, I believe it uses the adjacent server memory to go faster. And at that point, data is exposed on volatile DRAM. So I'm not sure of the details there, but I don't believe it's persistent in every
they have
use case.
One persistent and one is not persistent.
That's correct.
It's an extension of the memory.
Got it.
The persistent one is 200, 400 gigabyte for each single DIMM.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I mean, again, I'm kind of espousing the SQL Tell the Log. Certainly, NVDIMMs are really good for things like small storage bottlenecks, caching solutions, Oracle redo logs, things like that. Which you're talking about the larger capacity. That's where you start getting larger capacity databases, things like, analytics jobs, any workload that needs a large pool of memory, but maintain that persistence to keep the non-volatility of the data. And that's what really we've been talking about here is the fact that storage customers require that persistence, right? And that's what, otherwise you could use the memory bus now. And so what we're bringing to bear here is not only that persistence, but again, the software ecosystem. I think the driver support, the work we're doing with our application providers to get them to start looking at more byte addressable use cases.
So, as I said earlier, I mean, I'll just focus on the Arista news. That is the big news from networking. But as Calvin mentioned earlier on, we've reorganized internally, and now this is the first time we're actually splitting data center networking and our sort of campus and wireless networking. So all the campus and wireless and branch assets will remain with the Aruba organization, focused on the edge. And they are also taking IoT, and myself and my group for data center networking moving into DCIG and being aligned with servers and storage as well. And so this brings us a lot of long needed synergies in terms of what we're going to do going forward in creating overall data center solutions. And will make it easier for us to collaborate from an engineering perspective. But to the news on Arista, I think the big question that gets asked is why, and then what happens to the products that you have been shipping up to this point? Do they go away? The answer is no, they don't go away. And let me try and answer the whys and wherefores. What we've seen over the past couple years is a really significant segmentation in the customer base. We have customers who are looking at their own data centers, on-premise data centers. They're very, very focused on some pretty large deployments they have and major investments that they have, and they're trying to build out and continue to support infrastructures that are running, hundreds, if not thousands, of legacy applications. Those kinds of installations do not lend themselves very readily to the sort of transition to cloud. And while that is, the aim for most organizations, they have a need to stay with what we'll call sort of traditional networking architectures. And by necessity, they need breadth and depth of feature functionality, some of the older legacy protocols. And so our Flex Fabric products that we ship to date are going to continue to serve that purpose. And that's a huge installed base. It's a huge need in the industry. And, quite honestly, I expect that need to carry on for a decade. Networking is a conservative group of people, and we'll have a sort of long tail on that. But the major change is happening as people, it's generally started with larger organizations who are driving rapidly and have a business imperative to move towards private and hybrid cloud. And those organizations are really driving that effort behind the transition to cloud-native applications. And for them, the biggest imperative in terms of their infrastructure is to simplify, reduce the network footprint as much as possible, increase speeds and feeds and densities, and massively simplify the operational model through automation, programmability, resilience, etc. And it is for that portion of the market that we have partnered with Arista as the leading data center software-defined cloud networking vendor. If you've been in any of the sessions earlier today, you'll have heard, Arista is growing at just a phenomenal pace. Cisco's lost, 10% of market share over the last, several years, and Arista have picked up 10% of market share. So they're sitting at about 15% market share right now. They're at over $1 billion of run rate, 37% year-on-year growth. They have demonstrated that they have the credentials. And we wanted to partner with the best of breed provider and solution vendor in that area, which is why we've formed a partnership with Arista. What's in it for them is that we obviously have a longer reach. We have a longer reach in different regions where they may not have as great presence today, and we have a longer reach in terms of our channel. So it's really a partnership made in heaven. And then the final segment that we see customers operating in is this kind of disaggregated white box, bright box, whatever you want to call it. It goes by many, many names. But the bulk of that market is, heavily lodged with basically 7 large mega scale vendors. The Facebooks, the Googles, the Azures, etc. And most of those companies are acting as contract manufacturers, sourcing their own hardware, and then making big investments themselves in, software and engineering and stuff. And that's something that the general enterprise can't do. So there has been an expectation that, in the enterprise, that everybody will start to adopt white box, and it really hasn't happened. But we do have a line of products called the Alto line of products, which are a sort of, a bright box, a branded white box approach, fully supported by ourselves. We partner with different network operating system vendors. And what we are starting to see in the enterprise is there's very specific use cases that customers are starting to adopt. One is out-of-band network management networks. They just need a cheap sort of 1 gig, out-of-band network management capability, the ability to do specific security flow steering. For instance, to steer flows to, deeper inspection and things. That's another use case that's starting to emerge in some of the bigger enterprises. So, we are starting to see some adoption and use cases there. But those are the 3 different portfolio elements that we have now: Alto line, Arista, and our Flex Fabric. Serving the white box, the software-defined networking, and the sort of traditional infrastructure. So hopefully that gives you kind of an overview of where we're at.
Every year I ask the same question. I'm sorry for that. Today I heard, I think, 100 times the word simple.
Uh-huh.
How do you explain simple with ProCurve, H3C, Arista, Alto line, and I'm forgetting one more else because there are 5 now, I think, 5 products. I have IMC, I have Airwave, Arista also has a management tool, I have OneView. That's not simple, I'm sorry.
So simple in terms of what you want to do with it and the use case you want to apply it to. And as I say, the reality is we are seeing a segmentation. There is no such thing anymore, although Cisco would love you to think so, there is no such thing anymore as the Swiss Army knife, one-size-fits-all networking. It's gone forever. If you look at I'll talk specifically about the data center, that's my area. But if you look in the data center, you can't build a switch that does everything for everybody. We now have, as vendors, we're all having the same problem, which is SKU proliferation. The good old days when, the Cat 6500 was, the Swiss Army knife of networking. You could put it in the edge, you could put it in a wiring closet, you could put it in the core, you could put it in the data center, you could put it anywhere. Can't do that anymore. Because people are building networks for specific workloads. They're building networks to, deliver specific services driven by business imperatives, not by architects. Network teams do not drive decisions around how networks get built anymore. The business owners do. And consequently, you need a range of options for people to choose from. Now, could we do a better job of messaging and positioning? Absolutely. I do not disagree with you there. But we're actually making, strong progress in sorting all of that out. I think what you've seen on the edge side of things is you've seen we've really adopted strong branding around Aruba, HPE Aruba. Everything in the campus is now branded HPE Aruba. So ProCurve's gone away. Actually, ProCurve went away 10 years ago. It wasn't HP who proliferated that name. It was a user community who actually liked the products. But we stopped branding stuff ProCurve 10 years ago.
Okay, but you still have the ASIC, which is good, and then you have H3C, and now you have Aruba, okay, which is the wireless stuff, but you have still the management tools, also the CLI is not consistent. on management side, because the hardware is one thing. Okay, I can have one portfolio with 1,000 switches for high end and low end and everything in between in there, but also management wise, so the OPEX side.
Yeah, but my argument would be, everybody holds Cisco up as the gold standard in the industry. How many different CLIs, how many different actual real software loads do they have? They have 5 different operating systems. They have 5 different wireless offerings. They have a very good marketing machine, and they have, a large loyal customer base that's willing to forgive. But, I'm not here to bash Cisco. I'm just, in fact, I'm here to admire them. They've done a great job on that side of things. But the reality is we're in no different position. But because we're the challenger, people are less forgiving. Now, we are making progress on sorting all that. As I said, with the Aruba stuff, we've got, now everything aligned behind Aruba, normalizing all the products there. That's the Aruba division. What I'm doing on, my side of the house is segmenting by the customer use case. And we'll, normalize where we can. Certainly the management layer is a huge opportunity to do so. And normalizing through some of our software-defined automation tools, some of the industry tools around Chef, Puppet, etc. So I think that networking, if you've been in networking for a long time, networking got boring for a really long time, and then all of a sudden, a few years ago, it got real exciting again. And I think this is one of the areas where it is really exciting. Things are moving so fast. There's so much consolidation in the industry. There's acquisitions going on. We've done it. Others are doing it. It's actually really hard to normalize your product sets when you're going through those kinds of consolidations. We're seeing chipset vendors be consolidated now, and there's all sorts of great things going on. So while we will always endeavor to provide a simple message and a simple solution, we think what is important that customers need is that they need open networking solutions. They need the ability to choose. They need the ability to not be locked in. And they need the ability to go and address their specific use case with the right solutions. And we believe that a best-of-breed approach is the right way to go. And this is why, we're partnering with Arista. They are the best-of-breed, fastest-growing software-defined cloud networking. And HPE is the number one cloud infrastructure vendor, with mainly around storage and servers. So marrying those two things together makes a great deal of sense.
2 quick questions.
Yes.
Both around Arista. First of all, with the movement of the OpenSwitch project to the Linux Foundation 6 months ago, and your focus on using Arista as a partner in DCIG, does that mean that your contributions to the OpenSwitch project are going to start to trail off? Or are you going to focus OpenSwitch more towards a white, bright, brilliant box kind of?
So we started OpenSwitch with the intention of starting to have an if you like an open network operating system that would be disaggregated. It was always around a disaggregated use case. Now, would any other vendor choose to take that, brand it, productize it, and use it as an integrated solution? Yeah, you can do that as well. But our intention was to be, a disaggregated solution. What we did was we got it off the ground. We made major contributions, and just looking at the industry, if we stayed dominant in that space, then nobody else would join and move it along. And it's really important that other people take part. I mean, and so yeah, we've taken if you like a step back from a leadership position, but we're still there. We're still doing what we do. There's going to be differences of opinion around architectural elements and stuff, as there always is in these efforts. But we truly believe it has strong value going forward. We'll keep those efforts going. I mean, it's important for the industry.
Good. The other question has to deal less with technology, more with other things. Given the fact that Arista and Cisco seem to be ready to slit each other's throats right now in a court of law, do you feel comfortable partnering with Arista from a technology standpoint, knowing that should that go away, that doesn't bode well for Arista, that you could be next?
So I will not comment publicly on somebody else's lawsuit. What I will say is I am very comfortable with the partnership that we have with Arista.
Fair enough. Thank you, Dom.
Sure.
Just one question back to persistent RAM. You say you have Windows 2016 driver baked in, you have Windows 2012 driver downloaded. You didn't mention anything about VMware.
VMware is, they have a driver under development. We actually showcased that at VMworld in Las Vegas in August. The actual announcement date, VMware could share the details on that. I can't comment publicly on the announced date, but yes, we actually have, if you go to the technology showcase, we actually have a demo with VMware in that area as well. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Ivan, on the pay-as-you-go option of Flash now, the customer, the way I understand it, the customer does not take title to the equipment. Is that right?
So it really depends on, because the accounting rules are so different from country to country and also from customer to customer. So it really depends. There's some cases where the customer will take title, and some other cases where the customer can decide to take title after the subscription is over, right? So it really depends on the accounting rules of the country, right? And this is all stuff that I learned through the past 6 months, really. I know nothing about this, all these rules. So it really depends, right? In America, it's in a certain way. In France and Italy, is in a different way. So I said it really depends on the country and accounting rules.
I guess the question is then, if in a place where the accounting rules allow the customer to not take title to the equipment, does that mean that HP or a part of HP, or does a third party get involved in taking title to it then?
Correct. So if in the case the customer does not take title of it, HP Technology Services, yes, takes title of that, right? So they own technically the equipment. And that's true, especially when there's a service agreement. And that's also better for the customer, right? Because the customer doesn't have to worry about, okay, I'm running out of capacity. We will take care of everything, right? As I said, it's a complete service.
Yeah, it looks pretty attractive, by the way. I think it's really cool. And you've got financial models or whatever, so people can compare the 3 acquisition alternatives.
Absolutely, right. And again, especially if you think about some of the challenges that customers have, is that, everybody wants to have a DR strategy, right? But nobody's got any money to do all of it, right? And with this kind of model, you can say, okay, I've got some capital funds that I can buy. I can refresh my primary data center, and then I can go on a subscription model to actually do DR, right? So this is why it just enables us to have different conversation with the customers, and we can, as I said, mentioned earlier, we can be also very creative, right? Because by acquiring old assets, by infusing some cash, we can really help customers refresh their old infrastructure.
About that pay-as-you-go, I saw 3 cents per gig.
Yeah.
What's the sweet spot of how much do I need? Because if I say I want 10 tera, that would cost me $300 per month. Okay, send me one. I want one.
No, it depends, right? So that was a configuration, if I believe, was an 8450 with 16 10.68 drives. So it was a fairly sizable configuration, right? If it's smaller, the price may vary, but we're always talking about pennies, right? The overall, it might be 5 pennies, right, instead than 3 pennies. But overall, it's very attractive, right?
But there must be a sweet spot. Is it 100 tera? Is it more?
Look, if I look at right now we're selling all flash from a small 8200, 88 400 gig SSDs to 1024 SSDs. I see all the range. So I can give you an average configuration, but it's not really a sweet spot, right? Because our install base is so big. So it could be 10 terabyte, it could be 50 terabyte. It really doesn't matter, right? But that utility model will change based on the configuration, right? And if you're using the greatest drives that are going to yield a better dollar per gig, then also the overall pricing that you're paying is going to be lower. If you have a smaller configuration where you have to use the 400 gig or 920 gig, the pricing will be slightly higher, right? But there's no such thing as a sweet spot, right? It's very difficult to me to give you, look, this is exactly how much it will be.
Okay. Another question about Store Virtual, because it's always TripR, but there's also a second one, Store Virtual. Now with the separation with DCIG and then SD whatever something, I see that Store Virtual is in both.
Correct. Yeah.
How are you going to do about product development, product features, roadmap?
Look, the development and so on of Store Virtual is still under the storage division, right? So, and as you know, we're using the operating system also in the Store Virtual 5200, right? So that's very important. And there is co-development, right? So then there's of course prioritization between the two companies, but there's still co-development. And there's sharing of engineering resources, right? And that's inevitable when you have this kind of transformation in a company, right? There's just going to be some time where we'll have to do both at the same time.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.